So thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jill Weidman, and on behalf of the Tutorial Rated Institute and the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces, I want to welcome you to the first in our series on supporting those who are entering the cyber workforce. Today is the first of 5 weeks where we focus on topics to help you in your journey. We'll be covering resumes, interviews, continuing education, and networking. Our fifth event in the series is our job fair. We are delaying this slightly. We're moving it to the 14th of June from the end of May. And while we're really disappointed in that delay, we are so excited. We are partnering with Workforce Solutions of North Central Texas to host this job fair event. And we are really excited to be working with them on that. And it's going to be absolutely amazing. Our format today is going to be an interactive one. We have some slides, but more importantly, we have an amazing panel here with us today. They're going to share their experience in the hiring process within the cyber industry. They're going to share best practices, do's and don'ts, and tips for you to be able to put your best self forward as you move through the job search process. Please feel free to put questions in the chat throughout the event. We do have 90 minutes set aside for this event. Our presentation should take right under an hour, and then we've left time for a Q&A session. So hopefully you'll be able to stay for the entire event, but please put your questions in throughout the event, and that way we can address those as we go through. We also have a presentation that we're using today, and I will make sure and drop a copy of that into the chat so that everybody has that to download. And we have samples of the cover letter, resume, reference pages, all of that stuff throughout the presentation that we're going to be using. So that gives you kind of a starting point and some examples as you go through your journey. Now, I am honored to present your panel to you. Aggie, we're going to start with you. If you will please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Aggie DeLandry. I'm the HR director with Aventer, and I have been in human resources for a little over 20 years. I have my master's in human resources. My initial start in the HR industry or career was in recruiting. So I primarily did recruiting for a large healthcare system, and then I worked for the government for state of Arizona. And then I've moved into this role probably almost 9 years ago. And part of my responsibility is recruiting and interviewing, overseeing the recruitment processes of how our recruiters, go through the process and how we bring talent into Aventer. Just to kind of give you an idea of how Aventer ties to this, is Aventer is a cybersecurity company. We are involved in different technologies, anything from SailPoint to Oracle to some of our other partners that we work with, primarily in the identity and access management. And I'm sure that Rajesh will have more to add to that, so I don't want to run out of time.
Perfect. Rajesh?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jill. It's nice to be here. My name is Rajesh Metal. I work with Aventer Corporation as a practice director in identity and access management field, handling all type of security projects, whether they are related to identity and access management, or whether they are related to pen testing, vulnerability scanning, or even making sure that the cybersecurity assessment of an organization is up to date. And then have been in this role for almost like 14, 15 years now, but in the cybersecurity industry from last close to 20, 25 years. And please feel free to utilize me as your resource for any question that you may have on your journey into cybersecurity field. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Anya?
Hi, everyone. I'm Anya Lee, and I've been in the data world. Well, now it's data software, big data, and now it's machine learning world for over 23 years. So as you can tell, I'm really passionate about data. And with data comes a lot of privacy and all these great issues. And hopefully we'll get to some of them in our panel today. I currently am a senior product manager creating data products for a startup company, a SaaS startup company. And on my off the 9-to-5 days, I am an executive coach for people in technology. And I was going to say something and now it crossed my mind. And I teach at Stanford on data visualization and machine learning. So very happy to be here. I'm very happy that Jill invited me.
Thank you. Jill?
Hi, I'm Jill Atwood, and I've been kind of in the HR talent acquisition world for about a total of 10 years of my work experience. I started out as a full desk recruiter, working with candidates and working with clients, and migrated over into the HR general world, and then migrated on to my current title of talent acquisition business partner, where I oversee the U.S. recruitment for the company that I work for now. And we actually do have a sole dedicated InfoSec and cybersecurity departments, as we are in a highly regulated industry of insurance.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we are going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. And we are going to jump in to resumes. We have covered the introduction of our speakers. When y'all get this, everybody's LinkedIn is connected by their name. So please feel free to connect with us after the event. So let's talk about cover letters. Are they needed? What should we have on them? Are they a waste of time? What are y'all's thoughts?
For me, from my perspective, cover letters should be done if it's required. And then when you use a cover letter, put information in that cover letter that is not on your resume. Tell me something different than what is on what you've already presented for your experience.
Awesome. Aggie?
For me, it's not necessary. Typically, when they come, I'm more interested in reading of the resume and may skip over the cover letter unless I have a difficult time making determination on the resume, then I may go back to it. But typically, I look at the resume, I look for specific skills, I look at a lot of different things on the resume, but the cover letter, I do not really pay attention to. However, if I do read the cover letter and there is misspellings in the cover letter, if the cover letter does not tell me more than what the resume reflects, if the cover letter is poorly written, if it's not tailored to the position that you're applying for, then it will go ahead and kind of count against you that it was not prepared correctly.
Those are great points. Rajesh?
So for me, if a cover letter is provided, definitely I'm going to read it, and because it provides information sometimes which is not available in resume. For me, it is kind of if it is given and I can know more about the candidate who's applying for a role, that's very important for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Anya, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think cover letters used to be a lot more important, but now in kind of the digital age, short and sweet works really well. Short and sweet. I look at it as a sign of, hey, I really want to get to talk to you, get to know your company. So it's always a plus, as long as it's not a huge, as long as I don't have to read a book and it tells me something, like Jill said before, that's not on the resume, and Rajesh and Aggie. And then hopefully a little bit of where you want to go in the cover letter. When I was hiring people, that's something that I try to pay attention to, so I can also, figure out if that person would fit the role that I have open.
Awesome. Great points. So let's go ahead and jump into the resume. Let's look at we here sample, again, y'all will get this in the resume. So a sample cover letter. So let's jump into that resume format. You know, what should we be including? And if you're just coming out of school and you don't have a career and experience to put in here, how do you frame that in your resume?
Those are great questions, Jill. And so for a new grad, I would say your resume, if you have had no experience working at all, should include any type of maybe association that you belong to in school, right? Any kind of elected seats that you held in college, any type of volunteer work that you have done, education for sure. Talk a little bit about your soft skills in that resume if you do not have work experience to list out. If your work experience is not relevant to your degree, however you have it, like for example, you've been in the service industry, working in a restaurant, and you're applying for a job right now in cybersecurity, list that, because it does show that you have other skills, that you maybe have longevity or a job, or what are some of the different industries that you have been exposed to, that you have understanding. You know, cybersecurity applies to everything and all of us, all across the board. So we want to see that as well.
And I would say, in addition to coming straight out of college, if you've had a project in college that you had to apply some of those skills that are needed for whatever position you are submitting your resume to, make sure that you put that project on there. And kind of the same thing of if you've had a job in an unrelated field, take a look at the job description. What information is on that job description that you go, oh, I've done that over here, but maybe it wasn't necessarily cybersecurity, but I've done this skill set in a different position. List that in the way that you've done it, because those are transferable skills and people are willing to invest in others who have that transferability. And it shows that you're tailoring your resume for that job. And I suggest you do that for every single job you apply for. Is it time consuming? Yes, but it makes you stand out above everybody else who's submitting their information.
And I also echo the same thing what Jill mentioned, and then also Aggie mentioned. Mostly with a new student coming out of a college, they always look for that, yes, they want an entry into the job world. But also one of the key point to look for is what the job description is asking for. And in that job description, you will see certain items, certain nuggets that you should be able to include it in your resume. For example, I was working with a few students from USC, and they asked me if we want to jump into cybersecurity career, then what should we do? One of my recommendation was showcase your coursework, showcase what you did, what kind of projects you did, what kind of things you are looking to do. So those things will definitely matter with respect to cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is not a small field. It has tons and tons of things that that you can always lean back on. So please feel free to showcase your expertise on cybersecurity. It doesn't matter if you have tons of experience or if you have just know those subjects, but definitely put them over there. It will be big value add.
Yep.
I have two things to mention. One, of course, is addressing student resume formats. Of course, the relevant projects that you have done is very much needed. It's worth a lot of points, let's say. Another way to gain more points on the resume is if you do have any experience, this is project from new graduates or experience in the work field that's not cybersecurity, make sure to tailor, like bring cybersecurity and what you have done and try to bridge the gaps and put that in the resume. In terms of format, one page is always great. You should definitely have a skills section. You should definitely have your LinkedIn profile URL in there because digital world. And, you know, if room allows, you can put some of the extracurricular work, like, I don't know, nonprofits that you're a part of or get involved in. So anyway, whatever you put in that resume, try to bridge for this one, cybersecurity gap with the skills that you bring into that field.
Yeah. I would also, sorry, Jill.
No, I was going to say that's some great points, because there are a lot of skills that you can get in other industries that do come forward. That customer service and being able to interact with people is really important in whatever industry you go into. And I've been amazed at how many people I've come into contact with that are in the cyber industry that didn't start in the cyber industry, but came from somewhere else into it. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah. I was just going to add that if you had any internships, to also go ahead and include those, even if they were unpaid internships. Don't forget that you have, you know, maybe participated or helped somewhere. And one thing I want to mention is, you may think, okay, you know, I don't have a lot of things to put on here, so I'm going to include like cool graphics or fonts or colors, or, you know, make it flashy or put on a picture. I would say refrain. It is, you want it clean, you want it crisp, you want to go ahead and showcase your skills, you know, without making it look like a marketing flyer. You want to make sure that you stick to a traditional format.
Perfect. And Anya kind of touched on, you know, the length of a resume. What are y'all's thoughts around one page versus a little bit longer?
Please don't make it one page, is what I ask, because in order to do that, you usually have to make the font size smaller. And if it's too small, I personally am not going to read it. I don't have time for that. And yeah, don't make it one page. It's okay to make it a page and a half, a page and a quarter. And another thing is, if you have, say, you list your volunteering, half of the volunteering is at the bottom of one page, just go ahead and move it down all into one page. Try not to break up sections the best that you can. Certainly there are times that it needs to happen, but if you can avoid it, try to. So 3 pages, like it lists on the max there on that slide, is probably about adequate. I don't need to know what you've done for the last 15 years. I'm really only interested in your past 5 to 10 years of what you've done. Because anything kind of even 10 years or older usually is not relevant, but it can show some longevity, which Aggie mentioned earlier. Do you have that staying power in a position, and not a job hopper?
Perfect. And I think just one final comment is, when you're talking about that work experience or programs that you've been a part of, showcasing your impact to those programs, I think is really important. This is your chance to shine. And so it's okay to talk about yourself. It's okay to promote yourself. That's the whole purpose of this. So make sure you talk about the impact that you brought to the program, whatever that is.
That's an excellent point.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jill. That's an excellent point, Jill, because I know that when Rajesh and I are looking at resumes and people are listing, oh, I did this and I was a part of this and I was a part of that, we want to say, okay, how were you a part of it? What was your contribution? Did you have an impact on the ROI? Or did you have, some kind of an impact on, developing something new? And how much were you a part of it? Because I could just sit in a conference room and say, well, I was a part of this project, but my impact was really null. So that's important.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to touch on, Aggie, was what did you do? What were your contributions that made an impact for efficiency, effectiveness, cost saving, or revenue generating?
Cost saving is a good one too, Jill.
Awesome. Okay. Here are some tips included on, building out your resume. And then a sample for you to take a look at. Let's talk about references.
I think a big thing for me is if you, once we move to that stage, right? When we interview at a vendor, we go through several interview stages. Typically, companies that are reputable will put you through multiple interviews because they want to see, are you consistent? The HR perspective of an individual is different than that of the technical team. And it's even different than what Rajesh has. So there will be, maybe 4 interviews. Be prepared for that. And so at the final stages, once we've gone through the entire process and we say, okay, you know what, we all have aligned, we feel like you're ready to move on to the next step, we need to have references provided. And you give us references and they're not professional references. So they're maybe friends or family members. That kind of kills all of your effort. And additionally, if we call those references and they're like, who are you? Why are you calling me? What is this about? It makes it also, it tells us that you're not proactive. You haven't called those folks. You haven't prepared them. You haven't told them, hey, I'm applying for this job. And maybe you're just not really excited about us. You were just one of many you're applying for, and you're not wanting to go ahead and really invest in what we do as an organization. And so it's very important, I think, to use the right type of references. And then also make sure that they know that someone from a vendor will be calling because I went ahead and applied for a job there and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, and make sure that the email, the phone number that you provide is accurate. I'm not going to chase your references for you. I need to be able to talk to them quickly and be able to move on.
I just
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I call twice, and if I don't get a hold of them, I come back to you and say, hey, you need to get your person to call me.
Yeah. And I also want to just add one more point here with respect to the references, even though I don't conduct them anymore. But I feel that whenever you want to give references out of the folks with whom you worked in the past or of your previous managers or supervisors, definitely have a conversation with them in terms of what they will communicate. Because I've seen many times these type of questions being asked that, okay, yes, if we ask your reference what they will say about you, and if your reference does not say the same thing, then it may not go that well and you may not get selected for that particular role also. So just kind of prep your references and you should kind of, have them say the right things, what you have on your resume and what kind of work you have done also over there.
Yes. And make sure that they also know that it's okay to identify your areas of development.
Yeah.
If I call a reference and it's just everything, they're perfect. No one's perfect. I have areas of development and growth. I better. And if I say I don't, then I have stuff to stop developing in my industry, in my field, and my career has come to a halt. I don't want that. I want, so make sure that your reference knows to share your areas of development, because maybe we'll look at them and we'll say, oh, this is awesome. We can totally grow you in that area.
I just want to cap it off with, make it easy for the person giving you the reference and the person that is talking to that reference, right? That's the goal here. You want to make it seamless. Hence, you want to tell your reference, hey, I'm applying for this. These are the skills that I want you to highlight.
Mhm.
Right? And then for the person that you're giving the reference, like providing that reference information, you can also put, please email, don't call. Not everybody has a phone number now, or vice versa. So whatever you can do to make both sides flow more smoothly, that will work in your favor.
Right. And I will say that I prefer to call references than to email them, just so that I have that human touch. But I see, like on our list, it says company. If the company that you worked for is with that person is different than the company they work for now, put that in parentheses, because sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm so-and-so and I work here and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, how does, where does this fit? How do they know you, right? And so then we have to do like all this investigation that may seem like we're interrogating that person. I was like, well, how do you know that? So give us a heads up if they have moved on, or it was like 3 jobs ago and they have moved on and you have moved on.
Perfect. And what's your thought on letters of recommendation?
I don't review those because I honestly, I don't know who wrote it. And if I read it and I want to, and I like it, I'm going to ask you if I can contact that person to verify that they wrote that.
I think sometimes it's a necessary evil. I don't really read letters of recommendation either, not at this digital age. But I do know that some of my peers have had letters of recommendations from those that are very hard to get to, like, let's say a CEO of a 5,000 person company who really can't pick up the phone, or you don't trust them to reply on email. That letter of recommendation is something that would be nice. So a couple of points for the letters of recommendation from very difficult to get to people, like very high up people.
Awesome. So, speaking about that online world, let's talk about our online profiles. I know there's lots to go around with this.
If you don't show it to your mom, don't put it out there.
Yes. Very true. I would say, like Anya has said many, many times today, we're in a digital world. You are applying for a job in tech. We are going to look at your LinkedIn. We are going to see, who are you connected to? What is on there? Do you have information on there that is relevant? Does your LinkedIn profile match your resume? And I'll probably let Jill handle that bit a little bit more, but be mindful about your digital image. What is your picture like? Is it, does it look like, it's been filtered 7,000 times on Snapchat? Or is it something that is more natural and tells a story about you as a human? Make sure that it represents you in a professional manner, because it is a professional platform.
Yes. And I am that person who I do go look at everyone's LinkedIn profile that I'm going to speak with myself or bring into a conversation with the hiring team, because we require that someone have a LinkedIn presence, especially in some of the positions that we hire for. And make sure that what you're saying from your resume matches what's on your LinkedIn profile. It doesn't have to be verbatim, but who you worked for, what your title was, how long you worked there, all that needs to line up. I actually had it happen today. I was talking to someone for a particular position, hopped on LinkedIn, went and looked at their profile, and what's on their profile does not match the resume. So now I have to either decide, is this something I want to investigate, or do I just want to cut the person loose? Because it calls into question of which one's the real one. And no one has time for that, really. So we're probably, the decision was, we're probably going to just cut the person loose. So it is imperative that they match. And like I said, it doesn't have to be verbatim, but titles, employment dates and companies, and just a little snippet of what you've done at each place is perfectly fine. I do prefer those who say, I worked at ABC company as an XYZ person from this date to this date, and here's a few things that I've done in that role. You don't have to list it all. Just give me a general overview of what you've done, as opposed to no overview as to what you've done. And that helps with, like, when I go doing, or anyone in talent acquisition goes and does a search on LinkedIn, when they're trying to match someone for maybe for a job that you haven't applied for, I go and I can go, okay, yes, this looks great. Let me outreach to them now and see if they're interested in a position. Whereas if I don't have that little snippet of what you've done, I'm not going to reach out to you, because it's a 50-50 chance as to if it'll be a match at all.
So I have a secret for this one. I'm going to share it with all of you. The one best thing you can do for your online profile is Google yourself. Like, go in incognito mode, right? You don't want all those cookies assigned to you. Make an incognito web browser and Google your own name. If you see above the fold, which is just one page long, right? If you see something fishy, you should probably go ahead and try to get that out, or some other way to remove that from top of page. So that's the big secret. Google yourself. Honestly, you never know what you'll find. And if you have a common name, even more reason to kind of give the HR person a heads up and say, hey, just so you know, in case you're Googling me, because I know you're going to do that, this is not me. This is me.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point.
That's a great point.
When you are looking at your profile, all the points that Aggie, Anya, and Jill has mentioned, they're all very, very important. But also at the same time, make sure that you don't post any previous company's data, because that can, if you're applying for a cybersecurity position, you have to be very, very careful about what you're posting. Even by mistake, you should not be putting any company's inside information.
Mm-hmm. If you go to a company's webpage that you've worked at before, and they list 4 or 5 clients, and you worked on any of those clients, those are the only ones it's okay to list, because the company has made it public knowledge that they've worked,
Yes.
that they're a client. But if that company's client, like XYZ company, is not listed on the company's website, do not list it, because that is proprietary information.
If you're
That is
sorry, I wanted to plug in for those that are consultants. Just ask
Mhm.
your previous project manager or managers, just even a heads up saying, hey, is it okay if I list our company and our team on my resume when I was here for 6 months. That's all you need to do. And then you can list it.
Right.
Perfect. A couple other things that I think about when I'm searching on LinkedIn and looking at people is, you know, that photo that you're putting out there. I know there's a lot of AI generated photos and stuff like that right now, and they look cool, but we can't tell who you are. And if I'm searching for somebody and I'm trying to figure out who they are, I want to see you. I want to be able to look at you. So make sure you have a real picture up there. You know, don't be stiff or whatever, but you don't want to be out at, you know, a club or something like that when you take that picture and put it up there. So make sure it's legit. The other thing I think is when you look at that about section of your profile, tell a story about yourself. You know, don't talk about yourself in the third person. Don't focus just on your job skills. You know, who are you? You know, share a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're passionate about, what you like, because I think that's really important for us to get to know you and figure out if you're a good fit, because one of the things that we're looking for is that cultural fit and whether or not you're going to fit with our entire team, because that is so important to be bringing in like-minded people into your team. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how great you are. If you aren't going to fit with the team, it's not going to last long term. And we're looking for long-term, you know, fits in this process. We don't want a high turnover. So I think, you know, make sure you do that. And again, sell yourself. You are promoting yourself. You are telling people who you are. And I, of all people, know how difficult it can be to talk about who you are and what your successes are and why you're fabulous, but you need to do that because we don't know you. And this is our first opportunity to get to know you. And so put it out there so that we have that opportunity to open the door to be able to ask you questions when we are talking to you face to face. It gives us some stuff to talk about. And the last thing they'll add about the online profile is make sure you start getting those connections. If you have very few connections, there are so many different scams and stuff out there right now. A lot of people are, you know, concerned about that number of connections you have. So get out there. I know as you're getting out of school, it's a little bit harder to get those, but go to events, go to online events, go watch LinkedIn lives that are going on and stuff like that, because a lot of those people in there will be happy to connect with you if they see that you're interested in the same thing. So get your follows and, you know, start following people and work on making those connections and stuff so that you can build up that number of connections you have.
So we have a question from Vincent. Is a profile photo with family in it okay? And here's just a quick, easy to remember test. Does it pass it's called the airport test. If I look at that picture, am I going to be able to identify you at an airport? If you have, you know, a couple family members, you have a big family, I don't know who I'm looking for. So I think your question is really valid. Yes, it's okay, but you know, you want to be just the center of attention. Maybe you could crop out your family. So.
And let them know you still love them.
I was going to go ahead and say, I probably would not recommend that. You know, when you're having a family photo as your profile picture on Facebook or Instagram, it's a different platform. It's more appropriate. When you're coming to LinkedIn, that's a professional platform, and you don't bring your kiddos to, you know, to work with you every day. So it would probably be more appropriate to just have a headshot that is professional looking, or, you know, even if you're maybe more relaxed in it, and it's like a great picture of you and you really like it, that's okay. But keep in mind that the people that are looking at this are folks that are looking at you for a job, for a speaking opportunity, for a volunteer opportunity, or maybe to be enrolled into a university program. And so that's how you should be looking at. Would I bring this to my professor or to my boss? Yeah.
Perfect.
One other thing I wanted to add is that on LinkedIn, you have the opportunity to ask for recommendations.
Mhm.
And so if you're a student and you don't have a lot of work experience, but you have professors that maybe have really enjoyed having you in the class and see you as someone who's really valuable, has, good comments in class, you bring, you're engaged, you're attentive, you bring the right attitude, ask them. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, do you mind giving me a recommendation on LinkedIn? I'm trying to get I'm starting to look for jobs. I don't have a lot on my resume. It would be really helpful if I could have a recommendation. And people can leave recommendations for you on there. And that is really valuable. I will take those recommendations over a recommendation letter that has been submitted along with your resume.
Yeah, because the only way you can get that recommendation on your LinkedIn profile is if that person did it.
Exactly.
Those are great points. So we do have several pages of, we took an amazing profile that was shared with us, and I kind of pulled out the different sections of that. So this section of an example is several pages long because it talks about, that about section that we're talking about, where you're telling the story and talking about the things that you're experienced in and excited to do, and different levels of experience that you've had, your education, volunteer, licenses and certifications, skills, and again, those recommendations that we were just talking about. And if you've worked on projects or been a part of projects, honors, publications, anything like that, those are great things to put on here for us to be able to look at as we're going through and, stalking you to see if we want you to be a part of the family.
Legally stalking you, that is.
Exactly. So what about, how often should you update your resume, your online profile,
Every single time you change a job, update it. Because one, I'm going to do a search, and if you pop up and you've been at your new company 6 months, but your profile's not updated, I don't know that. And then also, let's face it, we're human. We kind of start to forget when we started working somewhere and when we left somewhere else, and it starts to blur the further we get away from it. If you update it right then and there, you will know that that timeline is accurate.
Great points. And which is more important to have updated, your online profile or your resume? Or are they
Both.
equal?
Both.
Both. And then just to add, Jill, to what you were saying, also, not only when you change your job, but also if your job scope changes, right? You could be a Java developer, and when you start with the company, this is the level of projects you're doing, and then you're growing and your skill is growing and you're involved in bigger projects and there's more responsibility. Your title hasn't changed, but you're gaining skills, you're gaining exposure. That is important to include. So as you're developing in your career, showcase that both on resume and on your LinkedIn.
Great points. So jumping into, that resume and reviewing. So let's talk about what y'all are actually looking for when you're looking at a resume.
I can read it because the font's not so tiny. That it's not an 8-page document talking about yourself, it's fine to talk about yourself, but if it's I kid you not, I've had 8 pages and it makes you think, this person can only see the world beyond as far as their nose goes out. And Vincent is asking if you step down in job title to work on school. Let them know that. You can put in there, change your job title, and just give the first bullet or a quick summary underneath it, stepped down to this position to focus on furthering my education, and kind of, whatever degree it is or whatnot. Totally acknowledge that.
Absolutely.
One of the things, and it's not mentioned here, is that I like to see is you have your company name, your title, your dates, but like a 1 or 2 sentence of tell me what your company does, because sometimes I will have to go look over and type in the company's name to see what they do, because the way someone else does cybersecurity over here for one industry, it's going to be similar, but not the same as another one, maybe. And if I kind of know what industry you're in, I can kind of gauge how more closely aligned you are for the role. But definitely it's okay to put that you step back for personal reasons. The pictures blow my mind when they're on resumes. And especially in the whole world of pay equity, pay transparencies, things like that. Let's try to anonymize yourself as much as possible with personal data. No birth dates. Don't tell me if you're married, if you have kids, none of that. But give me specifics of what you do in your role, your accomplishments that we mentioned earlier, that efficiency, effectiveness, cost savings, revenue generating, problem solved that you've done.
That's a great question, Sally. Why is it okay to put a picture on LinkedIn, but not on a resume? Because on LinkedIn, oftentimes we're looking for you after as a verification of, we've already selected your skills. We like something about you on the resume. And so we're just doing a further investigation. Also, that's how the platform is built. So that's expected. When it comes to a resume, we want to see the essence of you. And so that picture can do you sometimes a disservice. We have a lot of rules in HR to follow when it comes to age discrimination, race discrimination, gender, religion. And so we have to be careful when we're looking at those resumes, and we don't want to have, we don't want to have those indicators on the resumes. Your resume should be, this is who I am as an individual with this skill set, education, and this is what I bring to the position. I want to also identify any gaps. If you have had a gap, and for example, it was because it was to take care of your children or take care of a parent, or you had a health issue, whatever it was, identify what it was. Why is there a gap? Maybe it was during COVID and you had a hard time finding a position. Maybe it was because of, you did, I had a friend who went to South America to build homes for the underprivileged for a year, and she has a year gap on her resume, and she had listed that on there. So identify what happened during that time where you have a gap. And I'm sorry, I saw a question pop up, but I didn't read it fast enough. Too busy.
Hang on just a sec. Are you okay with receiving photos and fancy graphics on a resume if you're receiving a resume from a potential candidate at a career fair? Let's answer that one first.
I would say no, because we're sharing that resume also with our hiring managers. And it kind of goes along that line of what Aggie mentioned of there's HR compliance that we have to ensure is followed. And if a picture is on there, we have to figure out a way to take it off.
Good point. And Sally said, but if you post a photo on LinkedIn, you're participating in that tendency to discriminate. And I think the only thing that I'll say to that is, again, LinkedIn is our second or third place to go. when we are looking at hiring, our first look is at your resume, and we're looking to see if you're a fit and what you have. But if we get a one-page resume, we know that we don't have necessarily all the information. And so we're going to go look on LinkedIn to see what else you have that you've been listing on LinkedIn, you know, that type of thing. So,
And if we're going to LinkedIn, we already have an interest.
Exactly.
I'm
You've
not
already
going
been
to
kind
go
of-
look at someone's LinkedIn page if I look at their resume and they're not a fit.
Right, so
I'm
we're
just-
either headhunting you or we're already interested in your resume. You've piqued our interest and we just want to dig deeper. I'd like to hear from Rajesh from a technical standpoint, Rajesh. I know you and I look at resumes very differently. So I'd love to hear your perspective from a technical standpoint. What do you want to see?
So, so when we talk about pictures on the resumes, here in US, I have not seen people posting pictures on the resumes when I receive them. But I also recruit technical people from India. And over there, people all the time put pictures on the resume when they come and when we review them. So it entirely depends. One of the key thing is picture takes a lot of space on the resume. And more than the picture, you want to communicate what you have done. So that is more important than the picture. So for me, it depends. If you want to put pictures, that's fine. Let me also address the HR policies that we have. So whenever we sit in an interview, we have to be trained to take those interviews. So it's not that any random person from our team is coming in an interview and talking to the person. So all the people who will be on that interview panel or who will be interviewing the candidate, they have to be interviewed, they have to be trained, and they know how to interview the person in the right manner so that they are not breaking any HR policies. So coming back to the pictures piece, it entirely depends. If a person has put the picture on the resume, at least in my view, it will not backfire in any way or form, in any shape. But again, it entirely depends on the person. If they want to put the picture on, that's fine.
I think it's an
They don't
excellent
want to,
point
that's
that you made about a picture taking up valuable space. Think of your resume as real estate.
yes.
How do you sell yourself?
Excellent points, yep. Any specific like technical jargon or any specific technical information that you want on there, Rajesh, or don't want to see on there?
So definitely in the resume, we always look out for your background, the work that you have done, some of the technologies that you utilized while doing your work. So all of those things are very, very important. So for example, let's say you have not worked in cybersecurity, but you are applying for cybersecurity role. So then in that scenario, we look at the skills that are transferable. And for me personally, I look for people who are ready to always go to the next level of their career, which means that they have leadership abilities and they are ready to take on some extra work as well. So I look on to extracurricular activities that the person has done apart from just listing down their job profile or job information. So resume is definitely a story about a person, but how effectively they communicate as a person is also very important, not just from a job perspective, but also have some elements of the personal information also. Not a big laundry list of the personal information, something which can communicate to some additional characteristics that can be transferable to those particular areas of your job. So for example, leading a sports team, So that's a very important thing for us when we look out for salespeople. That yes, have they done those kind of work or some kind of, have they led those type of team? And even like in our cybersecurity area, if you have done some leadership type of work, then that's also very important for us.
Yep. And just
Anya,
like on your,
Sorry, Aggie.
I was gonna say, just like you post on your LinkedIn profile, like Rajesh was saying, don't post confidential information. Don't list clients that you have worked for that maybe the company is not disclosing they're working for, because you don't want to jeopardize your position.
Perfect. Anya, from a coaching standpoint, when you're talking to clients, what types of things are you telling them?
I'm telling them to keep it professional and relevant. Those are the two things that you need to keep in mind: professional, relevant information, and make it easy for the person to say yes, whoever that person is, your reference, the HR, the hiring manager. Try to stick with those three principles when you're preparing, is the best advice I could give to anybody who's asking about, oh, how do I embark on this journey in the most efficient way possible.
Perfect. And I think the last key piece of this whole resume process is the pre-screen interview. So let's talk about that. What is a pre-screen interview, in case somebody hasn't been through that before? Why is it important, and what are we looking for during that process?
So a lot of that is how do you communicate? How do you collect your thoughts when asked a question? A cultural fit, how you present yourself.
Can you jump back a step, Jill? What is a pre-screen interview?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay.
I apologize. You all know. So a pre-screen interview is conducted either by phone or by some sort of video platform. And it's usually held within that HR realm, where it's the step before you go on to the hiring team is really what it boils down to.
To me, it's like a 15-minute verification of who are you? Do you know what you did? Because if I'm doing a pre-screen with you and I say, oh, walk me through your work experience really quickly, and you can't tell me what you did or what jobs you held off the top of your head, or I question you and I say, oh, on your resume, it says you work here. Can you tell me what dates you were employed there? And you don't know, that's a huge red flag for me. You should know your dates. You should know your resume inside and out. You're the one who wrote it, right? Hopefully. So to me, it's that verification of you are genuinely the person whose resume I've read. I also like to see you on camera sometimes, if we can schedule it just really quickly. How do you show up? Are you prepared for video call? Are you dressed appropriately? How do you handle yourself? How is your communication? Sometimes we look for things like, we'll see something questionable on the resume. Like I've done a pre-screen once with someone, and it wasn't for a technical position, but they had like these gaps on their resume. And I said, your skills and the experience you have on you really matches the position, but you have these big gaps. Oh, well, I had these other jobs in there. I just didn't put them on because they weren't relevant. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, tell me about those, right? Because now if I present it to my hiring manager, I can explain why the resume is missing chunks, which I would not recommend for you to do that. But at least it gives me an idea so that I can understand. And then also the cultural fit. Will you be a fit with us? How are you going to, if you're at a pre-screen for 15 minutes with me and you're bored or you're doing something else while I'm trying to talk to you, or you feel you're rushing me off, then that tells me you're not very interested in us. You're not, this is not important to you. So I want to see how engaged are you in that quick chat.
Perfect. Yeah, do you have any?
Don't lie.
Yeah.
This is kind of obvious, but if you leave something out, that's okay. But if you just straight up say, I was in company A during this time, and you say you were company B on the resume during this time, that'll bring some red flags to the pre-screen, and you probably will not get called back.
Yes. And also be positive. Like if there is if you speak very negatively about your previous employers, that also tells us something, right? So think about how you present that. Sometimes it is hard, and sometimes we're not always blessed with having the best bosses and the best employers, and typically when we do, we stay for a long time, right? Because we enjoy working there. But if you don't, maybe find a way to soften it, or to not say, oh my god, I had this horrible boss and they were awful, and then take 20-minute therapy session talking about that.
Mhm.
We've all
Yeah.
been there.
Mhm.
Great suggestions, great suggestions. Okay, let's open it up for questions. Feel free to come off mute and ask if you have other questions that we haven't covered, that you'd like, or something that you'd like for us to go into a little bit more depth on. Or post it in the chat.
You guys can always bring up questions to us. If it's not convenient right now, you can always message us on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to discuss further.
Absolutely.
So I have contact information in here for the Tortora Breda Institute and our partner organization, the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces. So we have all of our information in here. We are happy to answer questions and support you on this journey. We consider ourselves to be a connector. Vincent, go ahead and come off mute.
Yeah, so I just have a question about how important are things like internships and things like that if you're like going to school and you're trying to do other projects too?
If the internship aligns with the position that you're looking for, I would say it's very important.
Rajesh, do you want to take this one from our perspective?
Yes, Vincent, I think it's very, very important if you have done internship in the cybersecurity field, because they will stand out, and definitely you will have a chance over the other people who have experience but have not worked in cybersecurity field.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. If there's a project that has to do with the subject matter, this one is cybersecurity. If there's a project that you're doing and you posted it on GitHub, I would love to see it. I would love to see it demoed, because that tells me you're doing something to push yourself towards what you want, and that what you want is cybersecurity, which I can help you with. So
yeah.
Hello, I'm a career coach at the University of North Texas in the College of Engineering. And we have a cybersecurity program degree that's very new. In fact, our first class is graduating this May. However, because it's so new, it's not ABET accredited yet. They should be visiting our campus soon. Would y'all be hesitant if you saw that somebody's graduating from a program that's not ABET? All our other engineering programs are ABET accredited. It's just the brand new program. It's so new. Would
Well,
that cause any concern for y'all?
I'll take a stab at that, David, because it's an engineering position that you're referring to. To me, it doesn't matter the accreditation. What matters is what projects you bring to the table so I can assess what you are passionate about and what you can do. And I'll marry that with what does the position need? And it'll be very, very clear right away that I don't care if you graduated from Harvard. I care that you can get the job done and fit in with the team.
And I echo the same things what Anya just mentioned. So we are hiring the person, not the university. So during the interview process, if you can convey that yes, you can meet the job requirements, then definitely you are in.
And
So,
David, for you to help, sorry, Vincent, if you want to go ahead and you want to help along your students, make connections with companies like ourselves and say, hey guys, we're in the process. We have this brand new program. Are you guys interested in, collaborating with us so that we can maybe send our students your way? And many companies will be willing to absolutely have that collaboration and see those resumes. Absolutely. So you can help it out while you're waiting for that accreditation if that's something that's worrying you, by making those connections for your students.
That's great feedback. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
so I have a question. When you're looking at someone's resume or LinkedIn, how much does it matter they went to like I'm going to like the CE cybersecurity boot camp, right? So is that going to look on less than someone who's got a 4-year degree, or does it matter?
So I'll start this and then I'll let y'all look. So I'm working with a lot of different organizations, and we'll have some different organizations on at our continuing education one that are the boot camps and stuff. I think that hiring in the cyber industry is taking a huge turn in what companies are looking for and how they're assessing the skills to fill the gaps. I think that the bigger question will come into that interview process when you're having that technical interview. Are you able to communicate and be clear and be on target with the questions that are being asked and the answers that you're giving? And are you able to showcase the skills? What are you learning? Because I think that no matter what program you're in, part of what you get out of that program is highly dependent on what you put into that program and where your passion is and what you're learning. And so I think that a lot of cyber companies are really starting to take a look at that above what is the name of the school that you came out of.
Yeah, for us, I know that when I look at resumes and whatnot, if I have someone who graduated and I talk to them and they can't make sense of their experience and don't present they are able to do the position, I'm not going to pass them on. Whereas if I have someone who came in and did a boot camp and they can nail down what I need done in that role, then I'm going to go with that person. So it really boils down to, can you communicate your skill set, and does that skill set meet the needs?
So then I'm just wondering, kind of on the same topic, when I look at LinkedIn, I look at a job and it says, oh, we want a bachelor's. I mean, if I submit my resume, it's going to get by some sort of filter, like it's, oh, well, these resumes don't have a degree, gone. I never make it to you or to, a hiring manager or something.
If that company absolutely requires it, then yes, you will be filtered out. But if it's just like, hey, degree or equivalent experience, you're not going to get filtered out.
Okay. Cool.
And I would still,
sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would still be applying, because good hiring managers, good, talent acquisition specialists, they are looking beyond. They know what's going on in the industry. They are current, And even if the companies are saying, this is how you have to write the job description, those people that are on the front lines of reviewing those resumes and stuff, they're still going to scroll through it and look to see if you're a fit and slide it in and make that argument for it if you're there. So I would still, even if it says 4-year degree, I would still apply personally,
Right. But I mean, if it says it's required, I can almost guarantee you that there's some sort of filter somewhere for that. But if it's just a casual mention of like, hey, bachelor's degree, absolutely apply, because it's just merely a suggestion is the way you should see it as. Unless it says hard and fast has to have, then anything, go ahead and submit it, because Jill is absolutely right on that. That we do look at them. I have one position that I have 400 applicants at. All 400 will be looked at, because I do find a diamond in the rough every once in a while, and it's worth it, and whatnot. So absolutely take a chance.
Exactly. And just like what Jill said, like when you have a good talent acquisition person or, good HR, they will read every resume. We don't let ours just filter through Indeed and say, oh, well, it didn't come through, so I guess we're going to say no because Indeed said no. Indeed's not hiring for us. They don't know who we are. They don't know our essence. They don't know where we're going. I'm doing it, right? The talent acquisition person on my team is doing it. Rajesh is doing it. So we will read them. And sometimes I won't be sure. And I'll take it to Rajesh or, and say, hey, I have this person. They're intriguing. What do you think? And he'll say, okay, yeah, let's interview them. Why not? And people have gotten jobs this way because we said, why not? Let's have a conversation, and we find them and they're excellent and they're phenomenal fits and they've been with us for a really long time and they're growing with us. And, so I would say, don't give up just because it says that, because most of my job announcements do say I want a bachelor's, Am I willing to bend a little for the right person because they have the right, they've done the right things? Sure.
Yep. And I do that as well. As I can look through and I'm like, okay, I see this, this, and this. I'm not quite sure on these couple of points, but let me just share it anyway. And I can have a conversation with that hiring team and point out and say, even if they come back and they're like, well, no, well, why? You have to justify to me telling this person no. And I have changed many of mine to get someone in the door.
Yep.
So.
And it could also be a conversation of saying, hey, maybe not for this position. However, I have something else and I can get you in the door, maybe in something that has a little bit of less responsibility. And while you're working on this project that is not what you've applied for, but we have a need, you can be working in the background with someone on our team to pick up more skills. And when you really show us who you are and you show us that hunger, you can work up into that other role. And so that is, that's the company you want to apply with. That's the company you want to work for, is the company that will look at your potential, not just where you are today, but what are you capable of in the future? And how can we together get you there? Because not all of our positions are, requiring 7 years of experience in this or that. Sometimes you can come on and be very green. And if you have the right attitude and you're hungry, we'll teach you.
How are y'all, I'm sorry, with any of y'all hiring for OPT or have experience with students looking for that? We have a pretty large F1 visa population, and they get a lot of mixed messages where it says we're not sponsoring. And really, I think the sponsoring takes place after the OPT time limit is up. So it's hard to give them good information on that.
Sure. Excellent question. And so we do see a lot of international students in the tech industry specifically, right? So for OPT, yes, you don't have to sponsor H-1B right away, right? And you still have to often go through the lottery process, and that's not a guarantee. However, for Avencer, we do hire OPT. We'll hire OPT, we'll hire CPT, and we will do our best to find a way to go ahead and sponsor. It is not an inexpensive process. So that's why I think you see a lot of other companies say we will not sponsor, because it is an investment for us to do that. It's our time with our attorneys and doing the case, and also, you know, with the employee and making sure that all the documents are put together correctly and everything else. But so if you see them say will not sponsor, I would say it's probably given that they won't, because of financial reasons, or they don't have the maybe means to do it, because it is a lot of labor to go ahead and sponsor.
Mhm. That technology positions are the only ones we will sponsor.
Yeah.
Great feedback. Yeah, and that makes sense. In other words, it's saying eventually we're going to get to the point where it's either sponsorship, and it sounds like there's a lot of overhead and considerations beyond just it's a simple, signing off on something.
Yeah, it's an investment on our part. And Rajesh, I don't know if you want to speak more to that.
No, I think you summed it right, David. Definitely, it's an investment, and so I think on OPT, a person gets a couple of years to showcase their ability, but also because of the USCIS lottery system, they have a very limited pool to pick up the folks from that lottery, and so it becomes very tough also. But again, as Aggie said, that it's a lot of labor to prepare for that particular case, and because I've seen Aggie and other folks in our HR team asking for that information, lawyers, back and forth. So it's a lot of investment also on the company's part to make sure that that person continues to work and stay in the country. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, that was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you ever want to ask more, David, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll be more than glad to jump on and go deeper on some of these things if you want to.
Fantastic. I sure will.
Sure.
We have any? Go ahead.
Sorry. Just copy that. I don't know if this is more of an interview question, but since I'm new to this, I mean, it's all very interesting, and I don't know, like, what do I want to do? Do I work at a SOC center? Do I do network security? Blah, blah, blah. So when I'm interviewing with someone, how do I tell them I want a job, but I don't know like exactly what I want to do in the industry, because it's so wide and so broad, anything from compliance to networking and everything in between. You know what I'm saying? I'm still kind of like picking my path. So how do I interview or say, I want to work, but
yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I think you have some great connections here, because I know that informational interviews are really useful. Like, you will talk to somebody who is in SecOps. You'll talk to somebody in, PII privacy, right? And Aggie and Jill and Rajesh probably are like super familiar with those people that have those positions. And through that, you can say, oh, this is more me, this is more me. But I completely understand, like, when you're trying to go from one industry to another, it sometimes is hard. Which is why, you showcase your transferable skills, you showcase the work that you've done. I'm assuming that you're an engineer, but that might not be true. Like the projects that you have done, regardless of, you know, whether it's code or not code, bring it up, tie it to why is it useful for cybersecurity? So Aggie, Jill, Rajesh, I'm sorry if I just threw your name out there, but I think everybody's really generous here.
No, I think you hit the point of that informational conversation to help guide you down to what interests you. And maybe someone can help you make a connection with what skills you have now and where they might best sit. Because as you were listing some of the options, I'm like, oh yeah, we have that, we have that, we have that. And they're all vastly different. So it really depends on what interests you the most. And so that informational conversation is key, like she said. So.
Well, thank you.
Vincent, I'll add up a point here. I think you mentioned something related to network security or some of the other areas. So based on your experience with any of these technologies, you can find a lot of help on LinkedIn. And if not, then you can connect with the folks here and they will try to introduce you to the folks where you can speak to them and then have more detailed conversation on some of these topics.
Okay.
I would also encourage you to follow conversations on LinkedIn, follow different posts, and then have conversations on those different, you know, white papers and blogs. And if you're thinking, oh, this is the piece of cybersecurity that I'm interested in, or this is the piece of cybersecurity I'm interested in, or this is the piece of cybersecurity I'm interested in, follow those and then watch what is happening in those areas. And, you know, what are these people saying, and ask questions, because people are very interactive on social media. And so most of us that go out onto social media are willing to help. That's why we're there, because we enjoy helping people. We enjoy having these conversations. We enjoy getting creative with people. And so don't be afraid to go ahead and follow those. And this is a great way for you to make connections, to show interest, to go ahead and learn, what is this about? What kind of projects can you expect? You know, what does that side of the house look like, right?
Yeah.
So I think also, Vincent, if you have a chance, check out the tutorbreda.org, which is our organization. We have, over the last 2 years, about 30 or so different events that we've hosted over a wide range of topics. And all of our replays are available on our YouTube page and on our event page. All the replays are in there. And you can just go in and check out what those different events were and see which ones pique your interest, and go in and listen to some of those, because again, it goes into that same thing of listening and hearing different perspectives, and you get kind of a feel for what the different pieces of cyber are that you might be interested in, and you hear from some really amazing industry experts.
Cool. Thank you so much.
So thank you everybody for joining today. We really appreciate it. Please share out the information. I shared a moment ago the link to register for our next event, which is next Wednesday at this same time. This one is specifically on that interview process. I'm posting it again in the chat. It is specifically on that interview process and what that looks like and all the things to think about. So make sure that you check that out and register as well. And we'll be reaching out to y'all with information on the job fair as soon as I have that available, and we can open up registration for that to make sure that everybody has access to that as well. We appreciate you, and we appreciate all your time today and the amazing questions that we got during this last half hour. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.